The modern idea of marriage, which usually involves lots of romance, acceptance, and a happily ever after, has largely been passed on from the movies and shows we grew up watching. But the truth is, marriage for love is a very new concept for us humans. To be precise, we only began to marry out of affection for our companions at the dawn of the 21st century. Over the course of history, people have entered marital partnerships for various reasons, with the earliest of these reasons being for survival. Back then, just over 23,000 years ago, the males and females whose offspring were the most likely to survive were those that formed the very first marriages. European, African, and Asian men often had multiple wives dating back as early as the medieval era, and this practice was seen as a symbol of wealth and virility. Several countries and religious faiths still permit polygamous relationships, but it has largely been abandoned by most of the modern world. From all of this, we can gather that marriage trends are often dictated by the social, religious, technological, and political situations of that era. So the question now is, what factors will determine the marital trends of our future? Society today has been heavily influenced by unparalleled advances in science and technology, social media, and the commercialization of everything. These factors will most likely shape the marital unions of tomorrow. For example, as medical technology advances to a point where people no longer have to fear death, or at least live a full life well beyond what is feasible today, it will become necessary to convert permanent marital partnerships to short, renewable contracts, most likely in 5-year increments, or smaller 2-year contracts with options to renew. At the end of this contract, both parties will make the decision to stay and renew or terminate the contract if the partnership is no longer as useful or enjoyable as it was in the beginning. We already renew and replace various things in our lives when they no longer provide us with what we need, or when we find better options, so why not our marital unions as well? Lifelong marriage vows made sense in the past because we often didn't live that long. The average life expectancy in the 1800s, for example, hovered between 30 to 40 years. So getting wedded at the age of 16 or 18 as of then meant you were married for just 20 years on average, which by today's standards only represents the infant years of a modern marriage. Even without a significant extension of our lives in the near future, it would still make sense for such contractual-based marriages to become mainstream. For one, the happily ever after agreement is rarely followed through by most couples, as the divorce rate in some countries is as high as 70%. Instead of living a life of regret after prematurely ending a marriage, an individual could simply terminate it once his or her contract was done. We will also see an emergence of AI-arranged marriages, which will match people based on compatibility data gathered from all individuals involved, covering their habits, sexual interests, to even genetics. Such an AI could even arrange for open marriages between couples with flexible sexual arrangements. These are currently called consensual non-monogamous relationships and would allow couples who are more promiscuous to have healthy relationships without fear of jealousy and distrust. Some may even forego the idea of marriage as a biological institution entirely, with the emergence of more human-like robots. It's already happening today, like in the case of James, who lives with a sex bot who he terms as his girlfriend. When asked who he'd pick if he had to choose between his human wife and the doll, James confessed he would not know who to pick, considering the doll was just as important to him as his wife. In its extremes, we could even see people married to virtual entities who exist in virtual worlds or as holograms, like we saw in Blade Runner. Pleasure gained from sex with such virtual partners could even be replicated by electrical stimulation to the brain. Several porn sites today already offer 360-degree videos which can be viewed with a VR headset. I think it's safe to say the emergence of virtual and augmented reality will push human sexuality and our relationships into uncharted waters. There's even a strong chance we could see the concept of marriage disappear almost entirely in the future, as millennials increasingly avoid marital partnerships because they offer very little in form of reward. I mean, why go into such a lifelong agreement when you can't afford the ring, the wedding, the house, or the children, especially considering none of that has anything to do with love or even marriage? All of this comes to suggest we are nearing the end of marriage as a worthwhile institution. Now, none of this implies marriage in its traditional state will be phased out completely. but it certainly means that there'll be an option for everyone, no matter your orientation, sex, or marital preferences. Please click the like and subscribe button below if you enjoyed the video. And if you want a heads up when I release new content, you could hit the notification button and follow my Twitter account as well. See you in the next one.